So we're ready to get on to our part 2 video on how to maintain our Volkswagen Beetle. We're going to do a valve adjust, show you how to change out the valve cover gaskets, and give you a lot of informative information on how that's done. Oh yeah, be sure to like and subscribe and ring the notification bell because we're giving away $1,000 in cash. So the first 1,000 subscribers to our channel, we're going to draw a name from them 1,000 subscribers once we hit 1,000. And we're going to give away $1,000 cash. So make sure to like and subscribe and check out our next videos.
The next thing we're going to want to do is remove the valve cover and these little spring retainer valve cover holders, whatever you want to call them. They can be pretty hard to get off sometimes, but if you just take a rag, kind of stuff it up there like that, we'll grab both ends of the rag and just comes right undone. You don't scratch anything, still looks nice and factory. Now you'll be able to remove it.
Okay guys, before we adjust the valves, the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that your pulley right here is up on top dead center on number 1 spark plug. And so you rotate this until you get this mark here to split with this case right here. I've got this here on top dead, and then this actually worked out to where this also landed on the number 1 cylinder. So that way we do know we're on number 1. If this was off 180 out, it could be over here on number 3 or... Another technique that you can do to make sure you got number 1 spark plug where this is lined up right and this is on number 1 is you can pull the cap off and you can see that it's lined up here. I believe that's number 1. If it was plumbed correctly, this would be number 1, but we want to double check. So I'm going to follow this spark plug wire back and just kind of make sure that, yeah, that's the one and it's going back to number 1. So that will guarantee me that I'm on top dead center on number 1, and I can go ahead and adjust the intake and the exhaust valve at the same time. One thing that you can do to make sure that you are right there is you can rock this back and forth a little bit, and if someone's down there looking at the valves, they really shouldn't be moving. If they're moving, you know you're not on number 1. So we're going to go ahead and double check that and show you how to adjust the valves. So one thing I went ahead and did before I just adjusted the valves and loosened everything up is I kind of wanted to see where they were at before we started. This one's at like 3.5 thousandths because the 3 goes in kind of loose but the 4 is way tight. This one I can't really get a 2 or a 3 in there, so it's probably real close to a 2 and a 3.5. These should be adjusted at 6 thousandths each, so we know that whoever did this last set it up pretty tight. Now I'm going to want to go ahead and take my 13mm wrench and break that loose, the jam nut, and this you can screw in and out. So I'm going to screw it out a little bit, get my feeder gauge. See, now it's just way loosey-goosey. I'm going to go ahead and kind of just snug that up against it. So there, it's tight. Back it up a little bit, and you just want a little bit of drag on there. You don't want it way brutally tight, but you do want to feel some friction. That feels pretty good. I like to pull it out, see if I can put it back in. Yeah, that feels pretty good right there. So you're going to want to make sure to keep this where it was, which was about right there, and then tighten your jam nut. You want to make sure that you don't let this center bolt turn any way because it'll affect your final gap there. We'll set the jam nut, check it with my 6 thousandths gauge. That right there actually feels a little bit loose. So I'm going to go back in, loosen my jam nut, probably just go ahead and go in just a little teeny bit and try it, because it was right close. Oh man, it's hard with this exhaust to... Let's see where we're at now. Probably tight. That's how it goes. Oh, I actually like that. I kind of feel it going in, and it has a little bit of drag. So I'd call that a day on that one. I'm just going to go ahead and maybe try to give this another little tighten down, making sure not to let this turn at all. Yeah, that's tight. You don't got to herc it too tight, but you don't want it backing off. So now that I've gone ahead and done this side, we're going to do this side the same way and go around and do all of them. Now that we got our number one exhaust and intake valve adjusted, we're going to come back up here to our crank pulley, and if you turn this counterclockwise, actually instead of clockwise, it should line it up to where number 2 is going to be the next one, which will put you 1, 2, 3, 4. So by turning this counterclockwise a full half of a turn, so I've gone ahead and I've marked my pulley already at a full half and put that up, so we're at 180 degrees out now. This should be pointing at number 2, and the number 2 down there, the valves, when I rock this back and forth like this, the intake and exhaust valve on number 2 shouldn't be moving, and then we know that we're on number 2. Okay, I've noticed, let's see, what am I going to say? I've noticed what? But what do I say? I've already started to embarrass myself on camera, so if you could just please like and subscribe. To continue with our valve adjust, we're going to repeat what we did on cylinders number 1 and number 2 on cylinders number 3 and 4. Now let's move on to replacing our valve cover gaskets and showing you how I glue them on so they don't slip and slide and become leakers down the road. Okay guys, now that we got our valve covers off on our engine, we're going to go ahead and remove these gaskets and put new ones on. Get up underneath this. This is a homemade device. Just made it thin and sharpened the edge. Makes it pretty nice. Okay, now that I got that off, I'm going to go ahead and clean this surface here up real good. Kind of give it a once over with the scrapey. Okay, now that I got that cleaned up some, I'm going to go ahead and take some lacquer thinner or some kind of cleaning solvent. Put a little bit on my rag right here. And we'll wipe off this surface so we have a nice clean surface for our new sealer. We're going to use some 3M yellow adhesive sealer and glue this cork gasket onto the valve cover. There's a bunch of different sealers you can use, but we like to do something that really keeps it glued and firm so it doesn't slide and slip. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-test fit my gasket before I start gluing, just to see how we're fitting, and it's going to be nice and tight, which I like. Sometimes it's loose on the corners and they want to slide in really bad, but these gaskets seem to want to push themselves out all the way to the edge of this lip right here, which is going to make for a nice glue job. So I'm going to flip this over, take my 3M, kind of holding my nozzle up off the cork a little bit while I'm squeezing and going in a circular motion, just to get good coverage and not make it too thin. You can let that tack up a little bit if you want on this 3M stuff. I'm going to go ahead and put it on there. Kind of go around and push it down, make sure it feels nice and snug. It's not catching up on this lip out here. Push it toward the lip. Give it every chance you got to make it a nice installation. kind of clean up any mess if you like. That came on. You saw how thick I put it on there, and there wasn't a whole lot of mess. There's a little here on the inside. I could come in and just do a little wiping if I choose. Now that we got our gasket all in place, we can go ahead and install this on our engine. So now we got all our valves adjusted, intake and exhaust. We can go ahead and install our valve cover here. Oh, I'm upside down, folks. That happens. Just kind of work your magic on there. You can kind of feel it. Like, yeah, that feels about centered. You know, you don't want it way hard to one edge, or I kind of like to feel like it's centered, and then I'll snap this on. Trying not to move the valve cover if you can. There it is on that side. Bam. And there you go. That should be a non-leaker. Alright guys, we went ahead and adjusted our valves, got our valve cover gaskets replaced, got that all buttoned back up. Now on our next video, part 3 of our maintenance on our Volkswagen, we're going to go ahead and show you how to replace the distributor cap, gap your points, check your points to make sure that they're not corroded. We're going to put in new spark plugs, show you how to gap them. Well, you know how to gap them, we're just going to show you the specs on them. And we also need to perform a compression check on this engine too. So stay tuned for episode number 3, and don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification button, and we'll see you on the next video.
Yeah.